Welcome to the Flora Sage Podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. You have every right to change your mind about anything at any time for any reason. And you know what? You don't even have to have a reason. You can just change your mind. Life is about expansion. It's about being where you're at, seeing, hey, this feels good right now. This doesn't feel good. This feels neutral. We experience so many things every single day. Through the expansion of living and existing on planet Earth, okay, we go through experiences. You grow up as a young child, as a baby, and you grow up as a young child, then you're a teenager, then you're college age. You go through all the stages. You go through your single digits, the teens, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond. And every iteration of yourself is almost like a new lifetime for you, okay? And the cool thing is that with age, hopefully comes wisdom, but definitely comes experience. So there's a first time for everything. There's a first time when we experience, as women, a period. Okay, there's a first time when we have sexual experiences. There's a first time when we tie our shoes. There's a first time when we drive a car or are in a car with someone. There's a first time for hiking. There's a first time for snow for some people. There's a first time for seeing the beach. There's a first time for reading a novel. There's a first time for reading a biography. There's a first time for tasting sushi. There's a first time for eating a vegan dish. There's a first time for eating a burger. So all of our firsts typically are like, oh, wow, what is this? This is cool. This is not cool. And we have all these different emotions and internal dialogue when it comes to trying something new. Then over time, we find our favorites of things. We find our favorite lip gloss. We find our favorite, shampoo and conditioner. We find our favorite clothing styles. We find our favorite types of bedding. We find our favorite types of novels, our favorite people to hang out with, our favorite foods to eat. But then every once in a while, we're like, this is not my favorite anymore. I think I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to change my likes, and I'm just going to shift a little bit. Typically, these are kind of done without big pomp and circumstance. Typically this happens over time, slowly or gradually, or it can also happen very abruptly, where all of a sudden we just don't like the taste of alcohol anymore, or we don't want to smoke anymore, or we don't feel like sitting on the couch watching TV. We want to get up and we want to move our body. And it can be a spur of the moment thing where all of a sudden we just decide to do something different. Now, with the people in our lives, often when we make these changes or these shifts, this can feel like, for people in our life, this can feel like, well, wait, what? Hang on. We always watch Netflix at night before bed. Now you want to work out? Hang on. What's going on? And so it could throw people off that's in your life that think that they know you. Now, the cool thing is that everybody changes. Everybody shifts. This is just like being outside. Nature does not rest. Nature is in a constant state of changing. It's in a constant state of shifting. And, one of the things that I've been teaching for decades is that just as nature changes, so does we. So does we? So do we. So do we. And if you look at a tree and you take a picture of it every single day for a year, and you look at those pictures in succession, you're going to see how different that tree looks from day one all the way through the end of the year, day 365 or 366, depending on if it's a leap year. So just as that tree changes, so do you. But usually, as I mentioned previously, usually it's really gradual. But like I said, sometimes it's very abrupt. And so when you can recognize these changes and shifts in your life and you articulate them to the people in your life, that helps them to accept that you are changing, that you are a person who changes and shifts. But also it may help them to accept change as well. Now, the interesting thing about change, in all the years that I've been helping people, change is a thing that most people resist, but it is the only constant that we can count on. It truly is the only thing that we can count on and the only thing that is constant in our lives. And so when you look at change and the ability to change, our ability to change, the ability for others to change, then the cool thing is you really give yourself and others permission to continually reinvent themselves and to continually shift and tweak their lives so that it feels more in alignment for who they are today. You know, one of the things that I talk about in my videos that I make is our historical version of ourselves and our fantasy version of ourselves. So the historical version of ourselves is who we used to be, you know. I used to be a runner. I used to do 5Ks and 8Ks and 15Ks. Never did a marathon, but my historical self was a runner. My current self is not a runner. I love hiking, but I don't like how running feels to my physical body. We all have that fantasy version of ourselves where, you know, oh, someday I'm going to run a marathon, or someday I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to do that. And we have this fantasy version of ourselves that in an ideal world, I can and will run 10 miles a day. But my current self is like, yeah, no, not going to happen, sister. You know what I'm saying? And so when you can recognize that we have these fantasy versions of ourselves and the historical version of ourselves, you can recognize and feel that kind of appreciation, if you will, for where you've come from and who you are. And then also your dream version of yourself, that fantasy version of, oh yeah, someday I can do this and do that. But you got to give yourself permission to be in the present moment. And you got to give yourself permission to recognize when something feels good, when it feels in alignment with who you are and where you are. And then also recognize when things don't feel in alignment anymore and you want to change your mind. And know that it is okay to change your mind. It is okay for you to say, you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. Or you know what? I don't like that anymore. Or you know what? I really like this. This is really exciting for me right now. And if somebody gives you grief or giving you some bullshit or whatever it is, because you decided to change your mind, know that that person is probably triggered in some form or fashion or in some way, and allow yourself to have a dialogue with that person. Try not to get defensive. Try not to feel like that person is trying to keep you stuck. I mean, could they be? Possibly, absolutely. It depends on how healthy that person is and your relationship with them. But give yourself permission to articulate those big changes and those big shifts. Because as I mentioned earlier, sometimes when we're in relation with someone, and all of a sudden they make a massive, huge change, they're like, wait a second, hang on just a minute. And a lot of people feel like that they're going to be left behind or they're going to be rejected or abandoned. And so again, that's their own mental health stuff that they need to work on. But as someone who is in a relation with you, whether it is a parent or caregiver or child or partner or friend, share your ebbs and flows. Share your likes and your dislikes. Share the art of change through conversation. One of the interesting things that I've seen take place over the last 5 years, if not more, is conversation is just dwindling. Like the true art of conversation is dwindling so rapidly because we live in these bite-sized moments, through social media, through these 15-second TikToks or 30-second or 60 seconds or 3 minutes. And it's short, sweet, to the point. It's super articulate, and it's all these bits of information that are just bombarding us. And so when we go to sit down to have a conversation, sometimes we're just like, shit, I don't even know what to talk about because there's just so much in my head. And there's just so much on my plate that I feel like sometimes I'm not even clear about what I want. So hang tight, stick with me here, because when we have so much information in our brain and we have so much going on in our device, and then all of a sudden we take that device away and sit across from somebody for dinner or for coffee or tea or lemonade or whatever, and you actually go to have a conversation, those people want to actually talk with you. They want to get to know you. They want to hear what you've been up to. And this person could be a friend. It could be your partner. It could be your child, whomever. But they're talking with you because they want to continue to get to know you. You know, years ago, I listened to this recording from Osho, and he said, you are not in a relationship. Relationships mean that they've ended. You're in a relation with someone, and they change just like you do. So every day, pretend that you don't know the person that you're next to, and reintroduce yourself. Reintroduce yourself, and don't assume that you know the other person. Get curious about the other person, what they like, what they don't like, what they're excited about today, and what they're working on. And really give yourself permission to pretend that you don't know that person. Now, granted, yes, you know your children, you know your partner, you know your caregivers, but we only know them to the capacity that we've allowed them to be seen from us through the filters that we have. Now, the filters that we have are our own experiences, our own judgments, our own biases. And so when you can give yourself permission to get curious about the people in your life and give them permission to change their mind, and also give yourself permission to change your mind and share that with the people in your life, what happens is you start to recognize, wow, so that person started salsa dancing. They've lost 20 pounds. They look freaking amazing. That's so exciting for them. So much has changed because they started salsa dancing. Wow, what does that inspire in me? Now, if it inspires jealousy or you get triggered in any way, again, that's a whole other podcast. But what it might change for you or shift for you is you realize, you know what, I really wanted to do yoga and I can't give myself permission to do it, yada, yada. But maybe now that I've been inspired by this person, now I'm going to do it myself. So what does this have to do with changing your mind at any time, any place, for any reason, yada, yada? It's got everything to do with it. I think about your first pair of shoes, okay? You had the Velcro shoes, let's just say. And then the next pair of shoes, you decided, you know what? I don't want Velcro. I want to get laces. So you get laces. So what if you had never made that decision? You'd still be in Velcro shoes. Granted, Velcro shoes are awesome. Okay? But if you never changed your mind, you would still be wearing the same things. You would still be having relatively the same experiences. You can change your mind about anything at any time for any reason. And you should change your mind. You should grow and expand from the experiences of your life. One of the things that I talk about in my book, The 1 Degree Shift, is how change is scary. Change is scary. Most people run from change. Most people are like, oh, change? Fuck that. I'm out of here. Let's go do something else. But the cool thing is when you recognize change is the only constant, then changing your mind is not such a big deal. Changing brands of coffee isn't such a big deal. Changing brands of toothpaste or deodorant or shampoo isn't such a big deal. Getting a new vehicle and changing makers. I used to be a Toyota person. I still am. But right now I have a Honda. I'm totally okay with that. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to embrace change and allow yourself to play around with other things in your life. It's okay to get curious about things. It's okay to be curious about things that you don't understand. Like, I follow people on social media that I want to learn more. I want to learn more about them, their lifestyle. I want to learn more about something that I know nothing about. So I follow and I watch and I observe. And I try to do it without judgment. I try to do it in the most non-judgmental, most neutral way possible. And it's a beautiful thing, my friends, because it allows me to see where my biases are, where my judgments are, where I get triggered. And that allows me to go, oh, okay, this is triggering me. Why is this triggering me? And it allows me to see what I need to work on still. But change is one of those things, like I said, is scary for most people, especially abrupt and massive and big change. But I promise you, through the 1 degree shift, if you've been following me, you know what the 1 degree shift is, but through the 1 degree shift, you build up your muscles, those change muscles. You build up the clarity that comes with change. You build up the courage that comes with change, and you build up the confidence that comes with change. So what's the 1 degree shift have to do with this? It's got everything to do with this. You're in a space right now that doesn't feel in alignment. It feels off. Something just doesn't feel quite right. It's perfect. Okay. That's the first signal. That's the first indicator. Something's not right. That something needs to change so that it feels better, so that it feels more in alignment. Perfect. So stop, take an assessment. Something feels off. Okay, perfect. What feels off? Lean into it. Give yourself permission to get curious, recognize what's going on here. And right there, just by asking that question, what feels off? That gives you permission to pivot. That gives you permission to shift and change just a little bit every single day. You'll shift into things that feel better, that feel more in alignment. And because for you, it's just a tiny little 1 degree shift that you're making every day. Somebody that hasn't seen you in 2 months all of a sudden goes, oh my gosh, you look fabulous. What are you doing? And in your mind, like, you haven't changed a bit. You feel better, but you don't think that you've really changed all that much. And then all of a sudden, like I said, somebody's, dude, I haven't seen you in 2 months and you're totally different. Like, what's going on? What are you doing? You look fabulous. You look so happy. That's because you've embraced change. You've given yourself permission to change your mind, saying, today I'm not going to have that second piece of cake because that doesn't feel good. I'm going to have a cup of tea instead. Or today I'm going to put my shoes on and I'm actually just going to go walk around the block instead of sitting down and watching Netflix first. Netflix is going to be my reward for walking around the block. Okay, perfect. And that one tiny little shift literally will change your life forever. And it all comes with changing your mind, of deciding, you know what? This doesn't really feel in alignment for me right now. Okay, perfect. What does? And do that new thing. It's okay to reinvent yourself. It's okay to shift and ebb and flow. And for those of you who are 30 and above, you know There have been many iterations of yourself. There have been many versions of yourself. At the time of this recording, I'm 46. And I definitely feel like I have lived many, many lifetimes within this life. And the changes and the shifts came when I decided to change my mind. And those changes and shifts have given me a life of excitement, of meaning, of passion, of adventure. It's been incredible. But it all started and it all came when I decided to change my mind and decided that where I was at didn't really resonate with me anymore and it didn't feel good. And I gave myself permission to figure out and get really clear, okay, what feels off and what's one thing that I can do to feel more in alignment. So, again, this is your reminder. You can change your mind about anything at any time for any reason. No holds barred. All right, I love you. I hope this serves you. If you are ready to work with someone one-on-one, I am available for private coaching. Click the link in the show notes if you're interested, and let's get started. I love you. I'll see you in the next episode. Mwah. If you're enjoying this content, which I hope you are, and you're applying this knowledge in your life and are seeing results, I would love to hear about your successes. Click the link in today's show notes, share your success story with me so you can help to inspire others. Also, if you've been loving these episodes, it would mean the world to me if you would rate this podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating is what I always aim for. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.